So in this next module, I'm going to give you a few more little tricks for cutting clutter. These are kind of some small things, but good little tips. So the first thing is, you can almost always eliminate negatives from your sentences and turn your sentence into a positive construction instead. That can make a big difference. Again, it's a small thing, but it can make a fairly big difference. Then you should be on the lookout for instances of there are and there is that actually are completely unnecessary. You can omit completely. And then often there's prepositions in our writing that are completely needless. It's not so terrible if you leave them in, but if you're ever trying to get an abstract down to, below 300 words, it's a good place to cut a few extra words that aren't really needed. So eliminate negatives. This is a great little tip that you may not have ever thought of, but things like she was not often right. There's a way to turn that into a positive, right? You can say she was usually wrong. So we're going to try to turn, whenever you encounter a not in your writing, see if you can turn it into a positive. You can almost always do it, and it's usually much clearer when you use the positive construction. Here's another example. She did not want to perform the experiment incorrectly. You can see the kind of double negative there, right? So how do we turn that one into a positive? She wanted to perform the experiment correctly. That's obviously much clearer, that second sentence. They did not believe the drug was harmful. How would we turn that into a positive? They believed the drug was safe. So there's almost always a way to turn that negative into a positive. So for example, if you have not honest, you could say dishonest. If you have not harmful, say safe. Not important, unimportant. Does not have could be lax. Did not remember, forgot. Did not pay attention to, ignored. There's almost always a positive way to say it. Did not succeed, failed. So pay attention, and in your writing, we're going to be looking at some examples in this class. When you find yourself writing nots, think about, sometimes you have to be a little clever about it, but if you think about it carefully, you can usually find a way to put it in a positive. Another little thing you can look for are instances where you've got there are or there is, when you actually completely don't need those words. So here's a very simple example. There are many ways in which we can arrange the pulleys. It kind of feels like you need the there are, but in fact you actually don't need it. You can just say, we can arrange the pulleys in many ways. You can drop that whole there are. Be on the lookout for when you're using a lot of to be verbs, is, are, was, were, be, been, and am. A lot of times there's a better verb there, or maybe you don't need the verb at all. Here's another example. There was a long line of bacteria on the plate. How can we get rid of the there was? How about just bacteria lined the plate? You can see by getting rid of the there was, we get a much more exciting verb, lined, rather than was. There are many physicists who like to write. How about just many physicists like to write? See, the there are in this case was completely unnecessary. We didn't even have to rearrange the sentence to drop that. The data confirm that there is an association between vegetables and cancer. Well, how about just the data confirm an association between vegetables and cancer? Notice that we didn't need the that there is. So a lot of times, if you're finding yourself writing a there is or there are, check and make sure that it's really necessary. A lot of times you can get rid of it. You have to think a little bit about it and get in the habit of doing that, but you'll pick that up pretty quickly. And then finally, another kind of small thing that you can omit, but I want you to start paying attention for, are needless prepositions. A lot of times, prepositions like that and on are completely unnecessary. And when you have to get your word count down, here's a good place to strip some extra words. So for example, the meeting happened on Monday. Well, actually that on is unnecessary. You could just say the meeting happened Monday. Or they agreed that it was true. Well, just say they agreed it was true. You don't need the that. So a lot of times you can get rid of those kind of extraneous prepositions. You might think you need them, but if you take them out, you realize you actually don't.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.